Okay. You guys excited?
Oh, can't wait.
All right. So y'all have been introduced, so I won't duplicate that effort, but we're going to get started. We're going to talk a little bit generally amongst the panelists, and then I'll ask each one some more personal, individual questions about their experience as athletes and entrepreneurs. So, great timing. Just last week, the NCAA announced that they will allow student athletes to be compensated for their name, image, and likeness. We know that the language is a little fuzzy, and it's going to take a while to see what that actually looks like, but clearly a seismic shift in stance for the NCAA. So I thought just if each of you could sort of let us know what you think about that and what you think the impact's going to be on amateur sports. And Sébastien, I'd like for you to go last because you have a special perspective on it. So anybody want to take it first?
All right, well, I think it's great. I think it's great for the athlete. I think it is a long time coming. I think this will trickle over into Canadian junior hockey and into other junior sports as well that are taking advantage of their players. So I think it's positive for both. I think the individual and the school as well. These players should be able to brand themselves and market themselves. So I think it's a positive thing.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of both sides. They should be paid something because the NCAA makes a lot of money. The schools make a lot of money. But what is wrong with the system is they say it's a student athlete, and you're really just an athlete because the athlete that leaves school, especially a one and done or a 4-year student, they can't compute taxes. They don't know how to get a checking account. They know nothing about life if they are making all this money for the school. Diane Williams, he can't understand what his tax bracket is or compute that. So it's a travesty that's done with the athlete because the school systems, they don't teach these kids anything when they go to college, and most students end up broke and or in debt when they leave school anyway. So it's got to be something different, a combination of the two. They should get paid something, but also should be taught better in the schools.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think it's definitely something that's beneficial for the students because you do generate so much money and income for the universities that you should be able to profit off your image and likeness. I think to me it's just kind of wondering how they're going to word that out, how they're going to figure it out to where it can kind of be. It's probably not going to be fair all the way across the board because as we were talking about kind of in the back about it, where I think a lot of it's going to be based off of where you go to school. I went to a mid-major kind of school to where you're not going to have money or really potentially even get the opportunity to play against, and especially playing baseball in college. It's not as big as basketball or football, some of the other bigger sports, but having the opportunity to really monetize yourself if you're playing in a mid-major conference as opposed to kind of a Power 5 conference.
Yep. Thanks, guys. And Sébastien has a great different perspective having grown up in France, which I thought was really interesting when we talked about it yesterday.
Yeah, so as you can tell, my accent is still here. So yes, I am from France. I came to America when I was 23 and to play soccer, of course. But when I came here, I saw all those games on TV of football, basketball, and I had friends who play in college. I'm always saying like, oh, you had a contract, right, when you were 16, 17? Because in France, when I play, I earn money since I'm 15. It was a contract, I didn't hear a lot, but when you are 15 and you hear, I think it was $1,000 when I was 15, it's kind of nice. But I didn't play in front of 80,000 people. My game was not on TV. Nobody bought my jersey. So when people told me like they didn't earn anything and everything was going to the school, it was crazy to me. I was like, how? It's not right. Just because, when you play, you put your body in, a lot in the line to kind of make a play or anything, so you got injured. It happened a lot of players that I play with, they earn money until they were 18, 19, but then they make it to the pro. But what they earned when they were playing from 15, 16, 17, they were able to save to maybe help them start another life after soccer. But in America, I'm like, it was for me very blow-minded still. I'm just like, not player got taken advantage of, but a little bit to me. It just very hard to understand. I know you have all the rules in America, but NCAA, and there's so many things I still don't know about it. But for me, any player should be paid, like you say, in a good system, that even if they don't take the money because they are 16, 17, maybe when they are 21, or I don't know what the rule in America is, but it should be fair for them to get some compensation about what they bring to the school or to the team.
Mm-hmm. So interesting. In that vein, and Ralph, I'd love your thoughts on this, especially. What do athletes have now that they didn't have 15, 20, 25 years ago?
I mean, in the basketball world, they fly on private planes. They have great food on the plane. They stretch out. We played. We had to, leave the next morning on a commercial flight, sitting in the front row and sleep and play 3 games in 3 nights. So the dynamics have changed. The game is somewhat the same, although they shoot too many 3-pointers, but it's still the rigors of the NBA, and lifestyle is crazy. But again, even at that level, I can go back to the Bill Russell days. We've talked about this when he was general manager of the Sacramento Kings. And it's somewhat the same as back then as it is today. The system has not been changed over the years. You may think it has, but it has not. But the money and the magnitude of money has increased dramatically. So that's the biggest thing. I mean, I wish I was playing today. I'd be a $500 million a year player. But, maybe I'd go back. I could walk down the court and play 10 minutes, I'd be good. But anyway,
Coming out of retirement.
The game is the same, but it's worldwide now. And the dynamics are the same. The players are the same. And you look at the Steph Currys of the world, their run and down their injuries has kind of caught up with them as well. But it's the same system, but a different way to play it.
Interesting. So, again, in that vein, more money, more resources at this point. Ryan, do you think that every athlete should think of themselves as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, I think it varies with each person and what their individual hopes and dreams and goals are that they want to accomplish. I mean, if that's something that's in your thought process of wanting to be an entrepreneur down the line, then yeah, absolutely. I think that we talk about it a lot with the social capital that you're able to provide, and depending upon what markets you're in, having the followings to be able to help different companies and just try to grow your brand. Everyone is a brand. Everybody in this room right now is a brand. If you have an Instagram, if you have, LinkedIn, whatever you may have from a social media standpoint, you are a brand because you're putting yourself out there to other people. So from the athlete standpoint, you just happen to be wearing a different type of uniform and playing in front of, 60, 70, 80,000 people night in or night out.
Sebastian, we've seen some athletes become almost more powerful than the leagues themselves. Do you think this is a positive or a negative impact on the sport?
It's hard to say, but for me, it's always positive if the player have a good attention, who wants to bring the game and bring the thing in a positive way. If it's in a negative way or for himself, that's not, I think, the right way to do so. Luckily, I think the most famous athlete right now has a very good mindset to help the game, help the fans, help the team, help the players to get better, beneficial term in health or anything. So I think for me, it's a positive point, but in soccer, just because I come from that, in America, it's still very low. I think this year the league is going to a new CBA, but the rules are still very, very strange, just because in Europe, soccer is the number 1 sport, but in America, it's maybe the 4th, 5th one. But players, I think, taking advantage a lot in this league. I got traded a lot, like it's the rules in America, when you got traded, you cannot say anything, which for me, as from Europe, it was crazy too. I was like, what do you mean I have to go play for this team? I love Philadelphia, I want to stay here, but you cannot say anything. So it's kind of very different in mindset for a lot of players who come from Europe, who come from South America to play in this league, to understand the process. So if you have a player who come from Europe, who have a very big salary, and stand with the player to get their right, properly, and make sure that everybody grow and everybody is happy, I think it's a positive way.
Excellent. Riley, what are your views on esports?
Well, I'm not sure I'm the right guy to ask, but I think it's grown so large and so quickly. When I first retired from playing hockey in 2011, it was kind of on the map, but how it's grown to where it is today, it's just growing legs, and it's hard to even wrap my head around the depth of esports and where it's going. I mean, you can be a professional, video game player now and make a living off it. It's hard to believe, but it's not really my world. I never really fully understood it early enough to really jump into it. I'm learning more and more as I go with this, but to me, it's ever changing with the technologies that are growing and the amount of people that are able to reach, and how you can engage from your phone and all these different access points. It's simply amazing. So it's one of those things I probably say missed the boat by maybe not paying enough attention to it early on, but it's really growing and quite amazing.
Ryan and Ralph, do you think the NCAA will ever welcome esports?
You mean like in terms of the...
Being defined as a varsity NCAA sanctioned sport?
If it grows enough, yeah. I think it will. I mean, right now you have kids that have the opportunity to get scholarships to go play, video games in college, which was, growing up. I was telling somebody before, I used to get in trouble for playing too much Nintendo or Sega or whatever. Like my parents come in, how long you been on that? Go outside, go play. But now it's a different animal. You have the opportunity of getting a scholarship. My son will be playing FIFA, which it's a different type of game from the standpoint of the managerial side of things, to where it's not like you're just playing the old school kind of games, but there's a lot of thought, there's a lot of technique, there's a lot of strategy that goes into that game, but also into the other esports games, to where you have the Overwatch League that takes place as well, and all the different strategy. I mean, a lot of it is very similar to what the major sports, soccer, basketball, football, like all do. The way these guys are training, they have trainers now. They do physical training. I don't know if anybody knew that, but they do physical training, mental training, as well as their game training. They have nutritionists and the whole nine. So it's something that's definitely grown and continues to grow and blow up. So I think the NCAA will. As it continues to grow, I think they'll have no choice but to welcome in esports as well.
And can you just elaborate a little bit more on some of the parallels you see between traditional sports and esports?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like what I mentioned before. I think that there's a lot of strategy. I think when you don't really have a lot of insight on it and you're watching people play, you're like, oh, they're just playing a video game. But there's so much more to it, because from the team standpoint, I'm still trying to figure out this whole Overwatch, the Overwatch League, but there's strategies that take place the same way that, from baseball, hey, pitching coach comes out and says, hey, here's how we're going to handle this hitter and then the next hitter after that, or whatever kind of play calling you're trying to do. There's similar stuff that takes place in the esports world as well.
Well, I don't know nearly as much as I should about it. I'm trying to learn as much as I can, and I view Ryan as somewhat of an expert in the space at this point. Wayne will give him credit for leading 76Capital's investment into Nerd Street Gamers. So I think even just in 2 years, learning about it and the expansion and understanding the strategy and the athletic part of esports, it's amazing. And we'll have the very first new building designed for esports specifically right across the street, right? Yeah.
They're going to be building a new stadium for the Philadelphia Fusion. I think they're already in the works of kind of starting all the talks and everything, and getting that going. But in terms of our company, Nerd Street, who's right over here on North 3rd Street, those guys have been amazing. Kind of tackling it from a little bit of a different approach, tackling it from more of the amateur side of things. So kind of growing it from that level has been amazing. And then what, John, Rob, and the whole crew over there have been able to do just in the last couple of years, and the growth that we've seen from that company, it's been absolutely amazing.
Awesome. While we're on sort of more specific ventures, I'd love to get some input from the rest of you on what you're pursuing now that you've retired. Riley, in the CBD space, would love to know, you were always known as more than an athlete. You were an entrepreneur early. Why the CBD space? How has being an athlete and that platform allowed you to influence?
Sure. Well, in my previous life, I spent a lot of time in the penalty box with the Philadelphia Flyers, and grinding it out the old-fashioned way. My physical body took its toll, the wear and tear from fighting, collateral damage. So I landed up forfeiting my last year of my contract with the Flyers to get into coaching, but more so as an exit strategy to kind of heal and find myself. So when I did that, I started just reading and studying natural and Chinese and Ayurvedic medicine and all these different things I can get my hands on, and everything kind of came back to the cannabis and hemp plant as far as pain management tool and anti-inflammatory, anti-anxiety, and sleep, and the whole bit. So I started learning about these non-intoxicating cannabinoids, specifically CBD, as an anti-inflammatory pain management tool. And the kicker was that it was the U.S. government held a patent on these cannabinoids as neuroprotectants and antioxidants. So, between the two, pain management and the concussion issue, being in contact sports, it seemed like something fitting for me to jump into. So I started a couple nonprofits back in 2011 and really just started pounding the pavement and educating and advocating. This is, much before the medical cannabis program in Pennsylvania, and much before the hemp program in Pennsylvania here. So a lot of just laying the groundwork, but became extremely passionate about it and started dipping my head down different rabbit holes and different industrial applications of the hemp plant, specifically the nutritional profile, the hemp seed, and everything seemed to make sense for me. From an athlete's perspective, or if you're working a 9 to 5, it's all about recovery. It's all about managing the daily grind and managing stressors and anxiety and promoting a good night's sleep. So I know the medical establishment can do better. Sports, corporate sports can do so much better for their players. You see a lot of guys retiring with major substance abuse issues. So this is about harm reduction. This is about giving guys better tools to manage the daily grind and increase performance at the end of the day because they're recovering better. But it just seems fitting for myself, having the experience of literally grinding my body into the ground and then finding a way to recover and find a better way. So that was kind of the meaning behind that.
Great for you to channel your passion into that. I'm having a hard time envisioning the enforcer role as I'm sitting here next to you.
A little different image, yeah. He said long, greasy hair and about 30 pounds heavier. Swollen up face to absorb some punches. But
was it like once you got onto the ice, that's when you went into enforcer mode? You're way too nice.
Yeah, it was a switch. I was a competitive guy. It was a job, but certainly it's not for everybody. But I signed up for it, and when I was ready to get on the ice, it was to flick on a switch, and that was my job. It was nothing more than that. It's certainly not who I am.
Well, I love what you're doing with all of it now and channeling it for good, both your nonprofit and the for-profit company. It's great. Ralph, recently, I guess last spring, you used a unique method to launch a new shoe line. It was, I believe, a pitch competition in Houston with Puma and 76Capital. And that was really the official launch of the Ralph Sampson Puma line. What made you decide to launch it that way?
Well, Puma came back into the basketball world after being out of it so long, about 2 or 3 years ago, and they wanted to kind of make a splash with it. They got a couple of #1 players in the draft of the NBA and started to come back. They gave me a call and said, would I like to be a part of something and bring back my shoes that I wore in the early 80s, understanding that Puma was the only shoe company that started to sign athletes. Clyde Wall Frazier was the first. and then myself. And it wasn't a Nike, it wasn't a Reebok, it wasn't an Under Armour. They didn't exist back then, and it was only Puma. And they were a culture shoe. They wasn't really a basketball shoe. It was mostly culture and fashion. Rayfield Johnson and all the guys had Puma on when they raising their fists up in the Olympics years ago, and they had Puma shoes on. So they saw the shift in the climate and the culture of the world. So it was more culture than sports, and people wanted to wear fashionable shoes. So they brought back actually shoes I have on, and the Majestic Ralph Sampson, and they called me and said, let's bring these shoes back. Now, a year into it, it's been wildly successful with bringing back the old shoe with a new twist. So now they have the stripe. They have the stripe with different colors. It's off the chart when it comes down to what they have built over the last year, and there's more to come in the next number of years as well. So it's been exciting for me to be a part of that, but also understand the culture of Puma and the lifestyle of the shoe, but also involved with athletics as well. The next shoe coming out is actually my favorite next year with the Sky LX that I actually played in my second year in the NBA. My first year in the NBA, I had to understand that I was with pro kids when I was in college, and then had a really serious pro kid contract that was owned by Stride-Rite. I had a piece of Stride-Rite, which was phenomenal at that point in time. A month before my season started, Stride-Rite goes out of business, and pro kids goes out of business real quick. So Puma was there. They took the shoe I wore. They shipped it to Germany. They sent me a prototype. My first month in the NBA, I had a cardboard box on my foot. I had 6 pairs of socks on, and then I had to wear the shoe until they made the official one, which was the first Majestic, and then the next year was the Scott LX. So being a part of something that I can help navigate as well and see it grow, I was in it's crazy because I was in Oakland about a month and a half ago, and they said, "You're going to this G-Eazy concert or event." I'm like, who the hell is G-Eazy? But he has so much social media, and he's on stage rapping and whatever it be, and it was phenomenal because then the shoe that we presented at that point in time sold out in like 2 days. So it's more of a cultural awareness of what the shoe is all about, so it's good to be a part of it.
That is fantastic. I love how that all comes together, and after all those years, not that many years, but those years. And I knew it had been successful when I was switching planes at Heathrow a couple weeks ago, and a family in front of me, I think the entire family was wearing Ralph Sampson shoes, and they were not speaking English. So it's a global shoe. Sébastien, you are the most recently retired on the panel. Can you talk a little bit about your transition to retirement? I know that you have started a youth soccer training business and done some broadcasting. And just sort of the transition and how you arrived at those two ventures and how it is for you versus a lifetime of structure, getting up and training and practicing and playing.
Yeah, it's very different for me. I mean, when I retire, I think all of us, we want to play forever, but it doesn't happen, so we know it's going to stop at a time. But I'm from France, so a lot of people ask me, are you going back to France? And no, I love Philadelphia. It's my hometown now, even if I'm not from here, but I consider I will spend a lot of time here. So I wanted to kind of stay here first, create something, but when you're retired, you think about some stuff, but I was kind of like thinking of taking my time about doing something I really want to do and I really love. I'm still kind of like looking, I created my own personal training, which is something I come from. When I was a kid, I used to have a personal coach since I'm 12 until I was 27, who really helped me to get better, in soccer skills. But after, when you get in a higher level, it's a lot of mental and, watching films and, make sure you always do the right thing when you play. So I try to bring that now in a little level in Philadelphia for the kids who wants to, progress and learn the same things that I did to help me to get where I was as a player. And otherwise, I'm really looking to really something I love to do. Soccer, it was my dream. Like I think all those guys who play the game, it's hard to find something that you wake up in the morning and you get excited. So like you say, when you play for almost 20 years, you always have the same schedule, or the same thing to do every week, every year. And to be able to be my own boss was kind of my goal first, to be able to enjoy life a little bit, I was lucky, I was smart with my money, and I saved, and I didn't, spend crazy money on a Ferrari or something because I would be broke right now. But so it's kind of nice to be able to take your time and find something. So I'm lucky, I'm not shy, even if my English is not very good, but I meet a lot of people here, people contacting me, and I met SeventySixCapital person this year who was a good thing for me to learn more about what they are doing and, be maybe involved with them a bit more. And at the same time, like, I meet a French pharmaceutical company who is based out of Philadelphia, who kind of asked me to be a spokesperson for them, which a product I use for a long time. And it's just like opportunity you get when you're open-minded and you feel people, but I still kind of look to see exactly what I would like to do later on. I'm still very young, and yes, do I still play soccer for fun? Of course, but not as a professional. So you need to find something, you really love to do every day, and, I'm not worried. I just kind of like want to find exactly the thing who makes me happy and want me to wake up, for a long time, for the rest of my life.
I think it's interesting too, because when you think about it as it relates to non-athlete entrepreneurs, like you said, you have to be open to the opportunities and think about what you really enjoy. And as Brian Westbrook said earlier, work hard. And for you guys coming from such a structured world for so long, I know it's incredibly difficult to have the discipline to say, okay, I don't know what I'm doing today, but I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to start someplace, and I'm going to think about what my interests are and try to go after them. And Ryan, speaking of interests, you just wrapped up your first season as an ESPN baseball analyst. How was that experience?
That was pretty. Thank you. It was pretty cool. That's actually what I went to school for, was communications, mass media. So being able to go to work like at ESPN and kind of learn the ropes, and just, it's a lot more behind the scenes, people. It's a lot harder than you think. It's not as easy as it is, but or as it looks, but it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. Kept me around the game, being able to continue to just kind of talk shop on baseball.
It looked like you were having fun every time I saw you. So I was going to tell you, if it wasn't fun, you need to go to acting, because you did a great job.
No, it was. I just try to have as much fun with it as I possibly can. So just kind of understanding the timing of stuff, and just learning the ropes. And the folks that have been there were very, very helpful with me, and just kind of giving me little tidbits here and there to be able to, kind of help keep it moving in the right direction.
Great, congratulations. How did being an analyst at ESPN help you in your venture capital world?
I would say, I think in terms of that, I think it's just, I guess kind of the parallel is just continuing to kind of understand, right? So when you're going out and you're being an analyst, you have to know the information. You have to be able to study and understand who you're talking about, what you're talking about. I'll just use the World Series, for example. Steven Strasburg and Scherzer and those guys. You have to understand what it is that's going to make those guys do what they do. They asked me the question, okay, how do the Houston Astros get to a guy like Steven Strasburg? Well, I really want to just sit there and say, well, just pray. Pray that you can get to him, because when you have somebody like Steven Strasburg who has the array of pitches and how he uses his pitches, how he varies it up. I was just talking in the back about the cadence of what he does. And usually for a hitter and a pitcher, a hitter is usually able to figure out a cadence that a pitcher will go to. If a guy's going to throw me a certain pitch at a certain count, Strasburg kept those guys off his cadence. They were not able to figure out that cadence. So I think from the venture capital world of it all, it's kind of figuring out the cadence. It's a little bit easier, I would say, than trying to hit a Steven Strasburg fastball and a changeup. But I think in terms of venture capital and trying to figuring out the cadence with the founder and the CEOs of the company, and understanding, okay, what's the business plan, what's the model, how are we going to get to this, what level are we going to hit here, what's your thought process, like understanding all the different thought processes at each level or each rung of the ladder of wherever it is that you want to try to get your company to, whether it's getting bought out, however you want to try to make your potential exit.
And what made you decide to join 76 Capital versus starting your own venture fund?
Well, I think that for me, I go back to, I'll use a lot of the, sports and baseball analogies or whatnot, and I go back to my old manager, Charlie Manuel, who had like the best piece of advice for all of us. He said, know thyself. And I think that one of the things is that you don't know what you don't know, so you try to surround yourself with people that do know so that you can fill in the gaps, because I think for success, you have to be able to have a good team around you, and I think that in any kind of business. I think as Brian, mentioned earlier in his talk, surrounding yourself with good people, surrounding yourself with like-minded people that are looking to grow and have the end result all focused. Everyone's all focused and trying to head in the right direction, and that's what it's been at 76.
Looks like it's been fun so far.
Great ride.
All right, I think unless y'all have anything to add, I think we can open it up for a few questions.
I'll hold it for you, all right?
Thank you. Regarding paying student athletes, NCAA, do you guys think that will actually basically make, say, 10 schools from now on to win national championships over and over and over again? Because people like LSU, Alabama, they have the money to pay, but other smaller schools in Power 5 don't.
You think the school's paying the athlete right now? I think they get a little bit more than that. That's why the big schools get what they get, right? So the playing field is not equal to, as you're saying, the higher Division I schools like a Duke and LSU, Alabama. Why does Alabama get all the best football players every year and rank number 1 in the country and win national titles? Don't fool yourself. It's not real. Unless you get a school, that just happens to come and win a title because of their hard work and effort. They can't sustain that because they don't have enough money. So the top schools will always win, no matter what, because kids are going to want to go to school there because they get all the perks. They won't ever be educated, in my opinion.
I don't really think there's too much more to add to that. I think, as I mentioned before, like my school, I went to Missouri State, so we're like a mid-major kind of conference type of school, Missouri Valley Conference. So, football, basketball reign supreme. So if you're from one of those big schools that have a football program or a basketball program, it's going to be tough. And that's kind of what my wonder is for those mid-major schools to, how are they going to fare in situations like this, to where the schools are either being able to pay or these other kids are, if they're getting it outside, from whatever kind of marketing and all that kind of stuff, you're not getting the same kind of exposure. If you're playing on that, if you're Missouri State, you're playing on ESPN plus 6. So you got to have the subscription to see Missouri State play. But you got Virginia, you got Michigan, you got all the big Power 5 schools that are playing prime time. ESPN 7 o'clock. Hey, eat dinner, come watch the game. So these kids are going to get a lot more exposure. So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of try to level the playing field.
The problem with that is, like Westbrook said earlier, he didn't go to a major school. He went to Villanova and played football. Nobody knows Villanova has a football team. I was shocked that they had a football team when he said that. So it was kind of crazy as it was, but baseball as well. But if you look at, you probably don't remember who was the number 1 pick last year in the NBA. Who was last year's number 1 pick? You know this year's pick, and he's hurt, right? But guys that go in the 2nd round, 3rd round, whatever it may be, have a hunger, as he said earlier, and they will probably make it to the top of the ladder if they have that hunger and drive and be like this guy right here that's going to be in the Hall of Fame of baseball and play for many years, won a World Series here. They have that hunger and drive. And those number 1 picks today, because they're given so much, tend not to pan out. And the only one I know that's panned out over the last 10 years is a guy named Anthony Davis. You go back and see, you can't count the number 1 NBA draft picks on your hand. You can't remember who they are, typically over year after year after year. So they don't pan out, so you got to look at that. Kyle Kuzma, the 27th pick in the NBA draft with the Lakers, he's going to be pretty good, but no one knew who he was about 2 years ago.
We have a question back here, Courtney, from Herb.
Ryan, if this question seems harsh, it's because I'm a Baltimore Orioles fan. The home runs were up this year, viewership and engagement overall down, second year in a row. Your average demo is in the 50s. Esports is 18 to 35. The clubs are doing a good job, in particular, of integrating with esports, but the NBA and the MLS are doing a good job. The MLB and the NFL seem to be moving slowly. Why?
Can't really tell you. I mean, I think that's going to be more of a question for the guys in the MLB office. I think that MLB, I think that the commissioner's office, I think they've tried to incorporate some new things in trying to continue to make the game better, continue to try to be more progressive, and I think that's obviously it's something that they're continuing to probably to look into. But as to why they haven't really made that move or that jump, I can't really tell you. I'm not in the office.
Hello, my name is Jamar Root, sophomore at Temple University studying sport and rec management. As you guys have went through your careers, you have constantly denied complacency. You've played in a career and you denied just settling. But even after your career, you've strived to be even more. How do you continue to deny that complacency in your life?
I think it's, you guys tell me if I'm wrong, I think it's just built in. I think part of that is from upbringing. My family was you always had to really earn your keep, and that's just something that's always been instilled in me. I think the drive. I think as competitors, I think it doesn't just translate on the pitch or on the court or on the ring. I think it's in everything we do. I don't think we really know how to turn off the competitive edge. So as an athlete, you're just naturally well, I was good at baseball, I was good at basketball, soccer, and hockey. Why can't I be good at this? Because I knew what it took to get to where I wanted to be in my particular sport. And it's basically kind of taking that intensity and turning it around, obviously learning the verbiage and whatnot in the business world and entrepreneurial world, but taking that same kind of tenacity and putting it in that realm.
When you heard this guy right here say, I bet if you went to the ice today and put some skates on, that he would flip that switch, right? And that whole killer instinct would come back automatically. Because he might be quiet right now, but I guarantee if he goes to the ice today, he's going to hit somebody in the head. So it's just the way it works. That's what happened. And he still has it right now. He still has it right now. The hardest part about leaving the game is finding something that you can turn that switch on with. And business is one of those things you can do that with. But I was learning from Bill Russell one thing. He said, I watched Wilt Chamberlain play night in, night out, and he mentioned cadence about a pitcher. He said, I can block Wilt Chamberlain shot all the time because I watched him, I studied him. So I used to study the game. I'm sure you did as well, and everybody up here. Watch video, watch tapes, watch everything. I learned that my first year in NBA, I had a guy named Bill Fitch, and this year he made it into the Hall of Fame. He made me as a rookie, and I'm the number one pick. I'm thinking I'm good, right? I'm all right. And we watch old tapes of the Boston Celtics every day in the summertime. I mean, literally every day. I would practice, I would go to his condo next door. We watched Larry Bird. I was sick of Larry Bird, so this is the way it works. But it taught me a lot about the game of basketball, so I could see stuff on the court that happened before it happened. And so I wanted to be good. I didn't want to be just average. I wanted to be good. I think everybody up here wanted to have that same switch. In business, if you don't have that switch, it ain't going to happen.
Hey Ralph, real quick on that, one of the things you've always talked about is the growth of business and how maybe talk about the size of the front office of the Houston Rockets when you came in as a rookie to where these front offices are today.
I mean, you got Mr. Stern up here after this, he can expand upon that. So when I got to the NBA, we had 18 to 20 people in the front office. That's scouts, coaches, secretaries, ticket people, everybody. Everybody had to do their job and wear multiple hats. Now they probably got 500 people in the office. You got social media crew with 3 or 4 people that go to every game and watch the guys play and do social media. They was comparing fashion from the day to fashion of old. If you go look at Clyde Wolf Frazier's fashion, that's fashion. If you go look at today's fashion, and LeBron, those guys going with holy jeans and whatever, it's not fashion in our world when we play, but it's fashion today. But it's all social media. So you got social media, you got foundations, you got ventures in every team. NBA, Houston Rockets, they have an esports team themselves in the city. So it's done, I mean, I tell kids all the time, you want to not just want to play basketball, because there's only 430-something guys that play in the NBA. But there's thousands of jobs in sports that you can get your hands on, not just to play. So if it's ticket taker to whatever, it's funny because I'm in Houston, I go to this restaurant, this guy named Robert Barr, he's sitting there, the big weightlifter. I'm the first guy to brought weightlifting to the NBA in the locker room. They ain't believe it. Lift weights, it's going to kick the shot off, you'll be too tight, too bulky, and it ain't going to happen. So I had people like Caldwell Jones, Major Jones, Elvin Hayes in the locker room, and after the game, they have a six-pack. They sit there and drink six-pack before they leave. That's all we did. How Robert Barr is the trainer. I brought him in off the street. First year, he was my weight coach. The second year, he was speaking general manager. So that's the way it works. And he became general manager for a number of years, but it's kind of crazy how many people they have on staff now.
Are there any other questions from the audience? Right here.
Hi. I was just wondering what you guys might have done specifically in China, whether it's leveraging your names, and especially when you go into the retail business. All sportsmen that we're working with seem to know that China is a huge market. They seem to find it very scary, and I think a lot of people out there think that they know how to get into that market, but it's actually incredibly different from the US market. So I'm just curious, especially on the retail side and leveraging your names and the sports popularity over there, whether you guys have had any exposure or experience in that.
I've never been to China, so it's for you guys.
I mean, China's a huge market. I mean, if you look at what happened with the Houston Rockets when the general manager went over there and talked about Hong Kong and China, whatever it be, I was asked to go on ESPN and talk about Daryl Morey and his China experience. David Stern can probably answer that question better than I can because of his ability in the NBA, and he brought the NBA to what it is today. But for me, going to China, all they could do was walk around being 7'4". I can market myself. I was in Japan when I played college, whatever it may be, but it's just how you market. You got to figure out how the lay of the land is there. You got to understand it. You got to understand it's a different culture, experience, and you got to find something that you can sustain your business in that market because it's tough. It's very tough over there.
I have a question back here. On the way back, Ryan, one of the things I thought, you talk about your broadcasting, we're investors in play-by-play sports broadcasting camps, and your involvement, you've been involved with them, and you've seen how we've worked with young kids, and it gives kids an opportunity to be involved in sports in ways that they may not have been involved in the past. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about that.
No, I think it's been great. I've had the pleasure of being able to go to the play-by-play sports broadcasting camps and just really kind of see what it is that these kids are going through. And as I said, kind of going straight, from the field to 76 to going to ESPN for my first year and really getting the understanding of, okay, how this entire thing kind of comes together, how things kind of move and shake. Having these kids being able to do this at such a young age to really be able to understand and master their craft has been amazing. I mean, the kids come up with great questions. They come up with great questions of saying, like, how can I become a better reporter? How can I do this or do that? And just, from the athlete standpoint to me is, well, one, don't ask stupid questions. But two, you have to be creative because if you're going to be that new kid kind of coming in, you have to do something to kind of set yourself apart from the rest of the crew, especially if you're trying to go after, the biggest person on the team. You have to be able to try to do stuff to set yourself aside from everybody else and, try and getting into their good graces or whatnot to be able to do interviews and whatnot. So it's been really, really good talking with the kids and learning from because I've been able to learn from the kids as well. So it's been kind of a two-way street, and they're doing a great job over there.
Hi, my name is Joe Messina. I'm a college athlete play baseball for LaSalle University. I'm also a business major. Just curious, any advice on how I could use my time as a college athlete now to kind of propel myself in the business world moving forward.
Did you just graduate?
Freshman, he said.
A freshman, oh, well, you're good. You got 3 more years. You got no choice, and you'll be all right. I mean, how did you know about this event? Why did you come here?
Just stay there, Wayne.
Now, one of the when that the guy James Santor, chief of staff, actually played in baseball at South, so he reached out to our coach and kind of opened it up to the opportunity. So
how many business cards have you gotten since you've been here yet?
nothing yet.
Oh, you got a lot of work to do.
Here's one.
There's one right there to start. So you need a network in this room and get every business card again, and then within 24 hours, you should email everybody in this room that you met them here and whatever may reason, and you should keep that in your Rolodex. You should know his birthday, his address, everything about him before you leave.
Thank you.
Just FYI, LaSalle grad, undergrad, and MBA, which is completely the wrong way to go about it. You're never supposed to go to the same school. You're not supposed to get your MBA at night. You're supposed to go to a fancy school. I can tell you, I had a long career on Wall Street, and they only recruit from, when I was hired, the top 5 business schools in the world. So anybody who asked me where I went to school, they would say, the what? Is that Chicago? My network, which is highly attributable to LaSalle through athletics, through people in Philadelphia who are in business, who are very successful, who graduated from there. If I look back, every major opportunity I've had in my career has come from some LaSalle connection. So use it.
That's awesome. Well, we're gonna wrap up here. I really appreciate all of you for being here today. I mean, I think we're, one of the things we're so proud of what we've done here at 76Capital is we offered student tickets. We partner with Temple. Number of LaSalle students are here. Number of volunteers across the number of colleges in the area. We want to, encourage that. We want more people in business to work with students, to give more opportunities to student athletes as well as just regular students as well at the schools, to try to build a better community, because that's what we're all about. That's why we do all these things that we do in the community. And again, really appreciate everyone being here. Want to thank the panel here. Now we're going to move to lunch.